Hi guys, so it is Raven aka Firefly here, and I'm going to be giving you guys a tutorial on the beginner's guide to Sims 2 directing. Now we've all been there, we've all been a beginner in Sims directing, we've all been like a newbie. So I feel like I should make this video to help other new Sims 2 directors have the resources that we all have and that we found over the years. I know that a lot of people have been asking me questions lately about filming and stuff, so I thought, why not make a video to kind of make their lives a little easier and kind of lump it all into one place, because I know there are other guides, but they're a little outdated. But I'm going to be talking about some other guides of people that I know, such as Allie, The Only Exceptions guides, and Jeb, Snapshot of the Souls guides, as well as my own in this video. So if you're interested in Sims 2 directing, then stay tuned. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about today is Gunmods Camera Mod 3.1 all game versions. Okay, so you see modthesims.info. That's the website. I'll put it in the description, but it's basically the camera mod that almost all of us Sims 2 directors have. Camera mods are to make your Sims 2 in-game camera a lot more smooth and a lot better. It makes it zoom in closer. So let's look here. We have the neighborhood camera, which lets you go to the far edges of your neighborhood in places of lots. You can see a top-down view, zoom in or out farther. The live cam mode, it lowers the angles, it improves movements and speed, stuff like that. Create a sim mode, zoom in any mode, meaning when you're creating your sim, you can also zoom in, and that's helpful. A lot of the times you can zoom in on places that you wouldn't have been able to zoom in before. Free mode cam. This shows like high detail, no fading, no clipping, so it doesn't it basically ups the quality a bit. Cinema cam makes that better if you use that. A lot of us directors don't use cinema cam anymore, so it's not really that important. Tracking cam is when you're in live mode, you can right click the sim and then it'll follow the sim as they're doing the movements, but as stated, a lot of us directors don't use that anymore either. So this is basically the basic installation of Gunmods Camera Mod. You need WinRAR or WinZip, which I'll link in the description if you don't have it. But basically, you just follow the instructions here. They're very detailed. Gunmod did a very good job with emphasizing. And I'm going to show you in-game camera what the camera kind of looks like when you're doing these move forward, move back, stuff like that. So I'm going to make sure that I show you guys that in a second. So basically these are the tips, credits, version types. Let me talk about the version types for a second. So when you go here, you see all the versions of Gunmods Camera Mod, and over here it'll tell you the correct version that you download. So if you want the no fade, no clip version, you would get this. I always suggest getting this one just because it's the best. It's great for close-ups, which is better for filming and stuff like that. If you keep B, the clipping is at Max's defaults, and we don't really want Max's defaults just because they didn't give you much freedom with it. And then C is you can clip at Max's defaults, which I already talked about here, and you can zoom in closer, but it'll clip a bit more, and this is basically the Max's version. And like I said, Max's didn't give us much creative freedom with their normal camera, so I wouldn't choose either of these. I'd always stick to A. It's what most of us use. And so when you go here, you will download camera version A. So let me show you in game what it looks like a bit. Okay, so now that you have installed your Gunmods Camera Mod, I'm using Adrian from Then You Were Gone as an example model. So what you're going to do is you always want to film in tab mode. So you push the tab button on your keyboard and it'll automatically take you to tab mode where it's going to be easier to film. You use your mouse to move the camera, basically standard, and you're going to use some of the controls that you now have access to. So one of the things you do when you are in tab mode is you can make the camera lower, higher, stuff like that, and it gets rid of all of the UIs at the bottom and stuff like that, and not everyone knows that. So what you're going to do in order to do zoom in, you do the Z. So it kind of makes sense because you're zooming in, so you're going to use Z. It lets you zoom in really close to the face, stuff like that. And then the next thing that you want to do when you are in tab mode is to zoom out, you push the X button. So you push X to zoom out, so that zooms you right back out. So Z zooms you in, X zooms you out. So when you're zoomed in, I'm just going to push play. Zoom in, she's talking, and then back out. The next thing you can do is to move the camera over. You hold the A button. To move the camera that other way, you push the D. So A, D, A, D. And it kind of just moves your camera a bit. So you can have some fun with some of that movement. Another thing you can do to go up is, or down, sorry, you push Q and it takes you down. And then to go back up, you just push E. Alright, so another thing I want to talk about really quick is in-game camera versus Fraps. Now, a lot of Sims 2 directors use Fraps, including myself. I just prefer it. Fraps makes really big files, so if you don't have a lot of room on your computer, many people tend to skip this and use in-game. I prefer Fraps just because Fraps shows slow motion, which you should always use a form of slow motion, not too slow. I use slow motion 4 just because it makes the movements more natural, slow motion 3 for walking. But I would suggest that you try Fraps at least once. I would give a tutorial on Fraps, but Natalie Fire XX already has an amazing tutorial on Fraps versus in-game camera that I'll put in the description. So we're just going to skip over that because Natalie already has a tutorial for that. But I would suggest you go watch that one right now before continuing, so you kind of get the idea, because I use Fraps. So we'll see. Alright, so we're going to switch up the model now, and we're going to use Julian Boyd from Then You Were Gone. One of the things we're going to be talking about is perimeters, and I'm not going to cover this too much just because Love and Life Girl 95 already has a tutorial on perimeters. I'm going to put a link in the description to download my perimeters if you wanted them. But I'm just going to kind of just say what they are, touch on it briefly, but not a lot because she already has a really good tutorial. So perimeters are what make your camera move a lot more like smoothly, like I did in the last thing. So what you're going to do is when you push play on something, I'm not making him do an animation, I'm going to set my camera to like 4 here. And then I'm going to set my camera to like 5 here. And then I'm going to zoom out. And then I'm going to set my camera to 6. So this is what's going to happen. You're going to see it. So we're going to go to 4. Then we're going to go to 5. And then we're going to push 6. And all you do is you push the numbers on your keyboard. So 4, 5, and 6. And we can even go in the reverse order. So 5, 6, 4. Or 6, 4, 5. So basically, you don't want to use perimeters too much just because it might make your audience dizzy, but it's really good for zoom in shots. For example, if you push 4 and then you push 5 right here, you can zoom out or zoom in during your dialogue. And perimeters just basically allow you smoother camera movements. The ability, how fast or slow your perimeters are depends on the ones you download, the ones that you use. You have the ability to change that, but Love and Life Girl covers all of that, so that'll be in the description as well right now. Another important aspect of filming would be lighting mods, but Ali already has a tutorial about the lighting mod, so I'll put that one in the description so you can see it. Another important thing I get asked all the time is about how to make people talk and how to make their animations look a little less animated and stuff when they're talking. The Only Exception has a really good tutorial on all of the talk hacks and the May pose boxes that she fixed to kind of overlay a little bit better with some of the talk hacks. So I'm going to leave her links to that as well in the description of the tutorials she's made for that. Okay, so basically I'm going to be making this tutorial kind of showing you all how I widescreen and colorize a bit. I've gotten a bunch of questions from new people, like new simmers, asking how do you widescreen your videos? How do you colorize your videos and make them a bit more pretty? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to like kind of show them the basics of this really quickly, because everyone should know how to widescreen. It's super essential in the community. So what I'm going to do is I have one video clip here. I'm going to drag that down. When it says, do you want to set your project video settings to match this media? I always push no. So you see the clip, it's right there, okay? So what you're going to do is right click, properties, disable resample. And let me see if this video has resample. Yeah, it does. Okay, so you see how when the sim is moving, I'm going to play it again. When the sim is moving a bit, there's that bit of a blur. And if you can't see, I'll edit it in and zoom in. But, so because there's that little bit of blur, I'm going to go to Properties, Disable Resample, and that'll basically stop the blur when they're moving. You see, it's not there anymore. So it stops the blur when they're moving. And you have to do this to every clip individually, and it can get a bit irritating, but I would do it anyway, just because it's kind of an essential thing. So then what I do is I go right click again, and then I video event pan crop widescreen. You drop down menu and then you click widescreen. And this is super essential because when you render, it's going to make your video widescreen. Snapshot of Us All has a really good tutorial on how to render faster, so I'll link you to his video. But for right now, this is just the basics. So basically, you see that you can leave it as is, or you can add the bars. Now, if you want to leave it as is, some directors do that. That's preference. My preference is I add the bars every time. So what you would do, you go to Video Effects, and then you go down to Cookie Cutter, and then you click Square Center White Border. Drag that right down so that every single clip on your timeline will have this. And then what you do is you go to the white, drag it all the way down to black, so you can still see your sim's face. Next thing I do, border all the way down. Just make the border completely 0. And then after that, I go to the repeat X. Now what I like to do for the repeat X is drag it all the way to 10. That way there's that long empty space in between. And the very last thing I do is you size the border. Don't touch Y. You size the border. So you can either go up like that, make it small, or you can make it big. I kind of like to make it around like this size, just because it gives you enough room to like show this. My friend is sewing in the background. So it kind of shows the bars and stuff as is. So that's basically how you widescreen. If you want to edit anything in the widescreen, you can zoom in like this in the clip to make it closer. You can zoom down, stuff like that. But I personally, for this sake, just going to leave it as is. So watching the clip with the widescreen, you see how it is. You see the colors. You see that it's kind of dull. Well, I edit so simply. What I do is I go to color balance and I drag default down. So color balance brings up this screen, and I like my tones to be a little bit more blue. So I'm going to drag over the blue a bit more, and then I drag over the green a little bit of green, not a lot. And for the reds, I don't like that much red, so I just drag down the red as a bit of a negative. So basically, I'm not done from here. So I mostly use this, and then you are gone. You can just leave it as is, or you can do brightness and contrast. For brightness and contrast, you up the brightness, which I only do a little bit, and then I up the contrast to kind of add that edge, that little bit of coloring. You can make it as dark or bright as you want. I'm leaving it there. So as you can see, this is the clip with the brightness, contrast, and the color balance. If you like stuff more dramatic than color balance, which a lot of people do because they like the flashy anime style stuff in the community right now, it's really big. You could drag on color corrector. You go down to color corrector, and then you drag default. Let me get rid of color balance. So if you wanted to do color corrector instead of color balance, You could play around with the settings here. It gives you more options, like you could make that more colorful. You could add this. You could go down here and then you can make things more pink. So basically you have all these options like saturation and stuff if you want to play with color corrector, but personally I don't need things to be that dramatic, so I just keep color balance as normal and get rid of that, just because I'm a little more of a realistic filmer, so I just keep everything like normal. And then what I like to do, the very last thing I like to do is bump map. So spotlight up flat, I go down to bump map, spotlight up flat, drag spotlight up flat down to the timeline. Now what you do for these is you put where the light source is coming from. So it's either going to be from the window or it's going to be right here from the machine. For the sake of the tutorial, I'll do the machine. And then this just goes down wherever you want. I only touch intensity, focus, and ambient. So intensity will be how bright it is, which I'll leave it like that a bit. Focus will be a little bit like that. And then ambience I'll put up a little bit just so there's a little bit more background. I feel like this just adds a little bit more of a realistic edge to it. It kind of gives the edges a little bit of shade so that this is more focused. And from that point on, that's just what I do. That's how I edit my videos, and that'll conclude this tutorial. I'll put the full video before and after this, but I just wanted to show you guys. This is just basically how I edit and how I basically add my widescreen. If you have any more questions, just message me, comment, email, Skype, anything like that, and I will help you out to the best of my abilities. I hope this entire tutorial helped you new people like learn a little bit of stuff, because you all should have access to all the resources that we have in the community. So I'm basically just going to end it here. Have a really good day, guys. Any more questions, feel free to ask. Thanks.